you ever watch the Wimpy Kid movies? They're pretty good. The actors do a great job of looking and acting like the characters we know and love. There's Greg, Roderick, Rowley, Fregley.
Hey guys, wanna see my secret freckle?
Ooh, you've got the cheese touch, loaded diaper, mum bucks, even that scary movie they watch at a sleepover, which is called The Hand in the books and The Foot in the film. They're really good. They've just released animated versions on Disney and... oh my goodness! What did they do? They're hideous! Alright, so the movie adaptations have good points and bad points, but what about the games? Let's find out. This is Mr. O Plays Wimpy Kid Games. This is the Wimpy Kid 10-second challenge. It is an action game for 2 to 6 players. It takes 20 minutes to play. Place the board in the middle of the table. Each player chooses a character. You can play as Greg, Roderick, Rowley, Fregley, Holly, or Manny, but nobody wants to be Manny. Nearby, you will need the 3 cubes, the beanbag, the sand timer, which is 10 seconds, and the cards, which should be shuffled. On your turn, roll the die, or number cube, as it's called in the rulebook, move your character and pick up a challenge card. If you can complete the challenge in 10 seconds, you can move forward the number of spaces shown on the card. If not, move back 1 space. The last 4 spaces don't use the number cube, so you just move forward 1 space if you complete a challenge. The first player to reach the final square wins. Now, the rulebook says that if you don't want to accept a challenge, you can pass it to the next player. But they can also pass it on until it gets back to you, and then you have to do it. Now, given that you have to move back a space if you fail the challenge, I can't see why anyone would take on your challenge. It's not worth the risk. Anyway, the board is kind of boring. They didn't even bother to mix up the order of the characters. They just copy and pasted them. These squares show the crumpled pages from the book, which I get, but they're still kind of dull and grey. And I think they forgot to put the texture onto the third one. The squares are kind of small too, especially when you have 2 or 3 characters sharing a space. The best part of this game are the challenges though. Some of these are pretty funny, like this one, where you have to untie and retie each other's shoes. Or this one, where you have to find something in another room that begins with the letter of your name. Some of them are surprisingly hard, like this one, where you have to put the beanbag on your foot, kick it up, and catch it. And some I've never done before, such as having someone throw the beanbag over your head from behind and you have to catch it. And all of these have to be done within 10 seconds. We had a pretty good time with these, but to be honest, the game would work just as well if it were just the challenge cards and the timer. Our next game is Don't Scramble the Egg game. It is a party game for 2 or more players. It takes 10 minutes to play. Shuffle the cards and stand or sit in a circle around them. On your turn, take the egg, turn over a card, and press the button to start the timer. You need to say something that fits this category and then throw the egg to the next player. They do the same and it continues around the group until the egg cracks. Yeah, that's the egg crack sound. It sounds more like your grandma farting into a paper bag. This is kind of a fun game, and it's nice that it ties in with the books a bit more. The egg is from book 5, The Ugly Truth, where Greg and his classmates have to keep an egg for 24 hours, and Rowley draws on his one and gives it a name. They took the picture on the side of the box from the book, although they replaced 2 of the boys with girls, which is weird. The egg in this game takes batteries, and it is a good size for throwing and catching, although it would hurt if it hit you, and you know someone won't be paying attention and will get clocked by it. The categories are quite fun, and the timer makes it stressful to think of something that fits. Like 10-second challenge, it doesn't really make much of the Wimpy Kid theme. In fact, you could make this about literally any book. Geronimo Stilton, Captain Underpants, War and Peace. Well, maybe not that last one. Also, I have to say that the box is way bigger than the components of the game. Look at this! Again, you really just need the cards and the timer. We've had 2 fairly average games so far. Let's see what this one's like. This is Cheese Touch Board Game, which is kind of funny grammar. It is a betting and bluffing game which takes 20 minutes to play. Place the board in the middle of the table. The middle, right? Not the edge. Separate the cards into 5 decks and shuffle them. Each player chooses a character. You can play as Greg, Roderick, Rowley, Fregley, Holly, or wait a minute. These are the same pieces as the 10-second challenge. Well, anyway, you'll also need a pad and pencils, or we use a whiteboard. The youngest player goes first, and the oldest player starts with the cheese, which means they have the cheese touch. You remember the cheese touch, right?
Then one day, this kid named Darren Walsh touched the cheese with his finger, and that's what started this thing called the cheese touch. It's basically like the cooties. If you get the cheese touch, you're stuck with it until you pass it on to someone else.
The aim of the game is to move around the board and arrive at the finished square without the cheese touch. If you land on the last space and you do still have the cheese touch, you have to take a challenge until you can give it to someone else. On your first turn, roll the die and move your playing piece. After that, you will move according to whether you completed the challenge or not. Yeah, the die is only needed for 1 turn. There are 5 types of cards. Randomness are the simplest. Move forward, move back, get the cheese touch, give someone else the cheese touch, things like that. The other cards are more interesting. For do it like this, take a card but don't look at it and pass it to the other players. Ask them to perform an action, say, eat an ice cream, in the way described on the card. Here, the word was sadly. If you guess it correctly, you move forward 3 spaces. You have 5 chances to guess the word, and if you don't, you get the cheese touch. Other possible words are sleepily, fearfully, lazily, or loudly. It's pretty fun. If you get yes or no on your turn, take a card and read out the question. Everyone else must write their answer, yes or no, on a piece of paper and keep it secret. Then, one by one, you have to guess their answers. Here, the question is, have you ever worn the same pair of underpants for more than 2 days in a row? Get them all right, and you move forward that many spaces. 3 people, 3 spaces. But get one wrong, and you get the cheese touch. Other questions are, have you ever been in a food fight? Have you ever met someone who was famous? Have you ever been bitten by an animal? Have you ever been bitten by a person? Zooey mama. Who said what is very similar. Again, you take a card and read aloud the question. The other players write down their answers, then you have to guess who gave which answer. We find it best if someone reads the answers aloud, so you can't just guess by the handwriting. Sample questions are, if you could be any animal, what would you be? What's the scariest movie you've ever seen? Name something that really gets on your nerves. Move forward 1 space for each correct answer. If you get none right, you get the cheese touch. Finally, if you get great minds think alike, take a card and read the questions secretly. Then choose another player whom you think will give the same answer as you and read out the question. You both write down your answers, which might be to questions like, what's the best brand of potato chips? What's the coolest superhero? And which player sleeps the longest on weekends? If you both get the same answer, you both move forward 3 spaces. If not, you get the cheese touch. Phew, that's everything. I really like this game. It evokes the Wimpy Kid books the best because it's got the cheese touch and it focuses on family and friends. The challenges are really fun and they tell you a lot about the other players and how well you know them. Do you know whether your mum has ever had a detention or whether your dad has ever laughed so hard that his drink came out of his nose? Then this game might help you to find out. The board is a bit small again, and the box is huge in comparison, and we often go around twice because it's quick to finish. But for a game that, let's face it, is designed to sell more Wimpy Kid books, it's pretty great. So, which one should go on your Christmas list? Definitely Cheese Touch, and only the other 2 if you are a Wimpy Kid completist. Mums and dads, head over to my second channel where I have suggestions for playing these games and similar ones at home. Keep on gaming.